Kookaloo! Hello, and welcome to Kookaloo Sailing. This is our onboard race video footage from Race 2 of the East Bay Regatta, the 2020 edition. This is the MacIntyre Cup. The East Bay Regatta for many years now has been I'll say a strong attraction, a strong draw for many sailors. It's a popular race series that occurs in Cape Breton's Bredor Lakes, which is Canada's only inland sea. If you have watched any of the previous videos, you will note that mostly the conditions in East Bay are fairly consistent during the summertime months. Wind is predominantly from the southwest and fairly light, generally in the 7 to 12 knot range. Today's race is no exception. If this is your first time visiting the channel, especially if you're not a sailor, I'll be the first to admit that these are probably not the most exciting videos that you'll ever see. I'll once again state the purpose of these videos. It's for us, it's for me, it's for the crew. It's an opportunity for us to watch what happened, what occurred during a race, look for any mistakes, and maybe the next time, improve on our performance. That's the purpose, that's the goal of these videos. I'm happy to say that Kookaloo is actually the defending champion of the MacIntyre Cup, and I will admit that coming into this race, we are really trying to hold on to that title. Maybe we were a bit too aggressive at the start. After the start, an individual recall flag went up. We were definitely not the first boat over the line. By our estimation, we were the third boat over the line. We weren't even sure if the flag applied to us or not, but it's a fairly long race. There is opportunity to make gains, so we decided to just do a restart just to be safe. I'll also mention, though, surprisingly, the two boats that were ahead of us elected not to do a restart. So obviously we're starting from behind here, and that gives us a good field view of the boats and what they're doing ahead of us. And pretty much every boat is on port tack, which is, I guess, based on where the windward mark is, it's probably the right point of sail. But not that we really want to take a flyer here, but if you're going to sail on the same line as every boat ahead of you, I don't really know where you're going to make the big gains. So truthfully, we decide to put this tack in here, hoping that maybe we will catch a wind shift that no other boat will get. It's kind of a gamble, I suppose. Early on we do fairly well on the starboard tack, but we quickly run out of wind, and I'll admit it's not looking good for us at the particular moment. So we make the call to go back to port tack, but I'll tell you right now, I did not see, no one on board saw this coming. We went for the tack, but the tack never happened. We rolled into a major wind shift. We do quite well on this starboard tack now that we've arrived in this wind shift. But there does come a point when you find yourself all alone on really the opposite side of the course, and you start to get worried and you think, well, at some point we do have to make our way back. So we decide to put a tack in just to get closer to the rest of the fleet. We end up sailing behind Corsican 2 here. Corsican 2 is a CNC 30. Just after we pass their stern, the wind does seem to drop substantially. And it appears as though we have exited the wind line that we were previously in. So we make the decision to return to starboard tack. You can see the difference in the point of sail here between us and Corsican 2. We're both on starboard tack, but Corsican 2 has a much better point. And again, none of this is visible to any of us on the water, so it's a substantial wind shift. There is a definite wind line. We've sailed out of it, and now we're just trying to get back into it so we can resume a fairly decent point. You can clearly see here, once we do get in this wind lane, the gains are phenomenal. And once again, we do make big gains on many of the other boats that unfortunately now are I'll say stranded over on the starboard side of the course. You know, when we think back at this, if we had a good start, if we did not have to return or restart, we probably would have ended up over on that starboard side as well. So I guess it is in many ways a fluke, I'll say, that we ended up taking that initial tack that put us on this side of the course and led us into this wind shift. So, you know, I'd love all day to say that this was something we planned, but no, we got lucky. The other thing too, and I rarely use this, it is a special little fast forward I have. You can see here I reach back with my hand and I flip the switch and it just jumps us right ahead in the race, and this is where we really make big gains. In all seriousness, the race is anywhere between a 3 to 3.5 hour race, and I was a little unsure if my battery would keep up, so I planned just to turn the camera off for a little bit. I meant to turn it on just before our spinnaker set, which is one of the key areas where we're really trying to watch what we're doing. Unfortunately, I forgot to turn it back on, and with the busyness that the spinnaker set. It certainly didn't cross my mind until afterwards. And I know no one will believe me here, but I also must admit that this was probably one of our best spinnaker sets to date. We're really quite pleased, and I'm a little upset that we didn't actually get it on videotape. So you'll see here that not only have we set our spinnaker, we've also performed a jibe, and now we are on our way to the leeward mark. So thanks to the wind shift that we stumbled upon, we're actually doing quite well now. There are only 3 boats ahead of us, one of which is a CNC 38. They are not flying spinnaker, so they're not actually even in our division. The 2 boats that are in our division ahead of us are the Flying Tiger 10 and the Henderson 30, and they do owe us quite a bit of time. So amazingly, we're pretty confident with where we are currently, our position in this race. During the spinnaker run, the wind does slightly change angles, and we find that the wind is starting to come more and more on our beam. We'll try to carry this as far as we can, considering the fact that the wind is fairly light. And I've mentioned this on previous videos. The goal here will be to move the pole forward. You certainly don't want to have it banging off of the forestay. You could also, I suppose, lower the pole end as well. By lowering the pole, you're trying to stretch out the foot of the spinnaker, thus I suppose trying to turn it into more like a genoa. There is a point though when it's just no longer effective, and it's just simply better to put the genoa up. Now, of course, I say this because we're running a symmetrical spinnaker. If we had an asymmetrical spinnaker, then that would be a different story. I mean, we're certainly still capable of flying this for the time being, but we're starting the preparations anyway, just in case we can't handle it anymore, and then the genoa will be ready to go. Yeah, so you can see now that we are really starting to get hit, and I'm actually starting to bear off a little bit. We were looking to overtake Irish Mist to windward, but I'm falling now below, so pretty soon we're going to make the call just to go with the genoa. By now the wind has moved fore of the mast. We dose the spinnaker, stow the pole, and then clean up the sheets. There's really no major issue with the spinnaker takedown. I think it's still a fairly conservative takedown. We brought it in aft, as you can see, through the companionway. I've mentioned in previous videos that this is not an ideal method for takedown, especially if you are planning on reusing the spinnaker. There's a section of time here when the sails maybe aren't trimmed as they should be, so we do fall back a bit from the C&C 38 that we were, I must say, pretty happy to be catching up to. Over our left-hand shoulder, MTC, which is an Etchells, they are still carrying their spinnaker. They have a slightly different angled approach to the leeward mark, so that enables them to carry their spinnaker a bit longer than we did. So they do make gains, they do overtake us, but overall we are still, I'd say, pretty happy with where we are positioned. Fairly shifty at this point in the race. It's essentially turned into another upwind leg. We try to position ourselves to remain above the boats that are returning to the finish. I slightly overstand the ley line for the next mark. I really don't want to take an extra hitch here to get by this mark. Now it's a beam reach to the finish. After this race, I went to the race committee right away and I asked, were we over early? And they told me, yes, you were, and it's a good thing you went back, because ultimately we ended up winning the MacIntyre Cup for the second year in a row.